It was supposed to be the kind of trip you take photos of just to make your coworkers hate you a little. 7 nights. Luxury cruise. Caribbean itinerary with just enough stops to brag about culture, but enough sea days to justify sunscreen and tequila by noon. Our cabin had a balcony. King bed. Complimentary champagne chilling when we walked in. A romantic gesture, Dana said, her lips barely touching the glass. And right then, I should have known. Because Dana wasn't the gesture type. Not unless there was an audience. And definitely not unless she was being photographed doing it. But I didn't say anything. Just smiled, clinked glasses, and told myself we needed this. We'd been off lately. A little distant. Nothing dramatic. Just missed calls, separate dinners, her weird obsession with overnight eye creams, and solo yoga retreats. But hey, life gets busy. Marriages go through seasons. And maybe, just maybe, we'd find each other again somewhere between St. Thomas and Barbados. That was the plan. Until day 2, when she said, let's split up for excursions. It's more efficient that way. We were having breakfast on the terrace. Orange juice, fruit, the kind of croissants that flake into your soul. Dana was already dressed, sporty tank top, high-end leggings, hair twisted into an I didn't try bun that definitely took effort. She had her phone face down on the table, which, again, should have told me everything. Split up? I repeated, like I'd misheard. Just for today, she said too fast. You've been talking about that snorkeling trip, right? I'll do the botanical garden hike. We'll cover more ground. Efficient. Like we were doing a recon mission instead of a honeymoon reset. I nodded. Okay. Sounds good. It didn't. It sounded like strategy. Like distraction. But I let it slide. Because what's one solo tour on a week-long trip? That night, she was glowing. Flushed cheeks, loose hair, the kind of smile that's usually reserved for people who say things like, you're not like other guys. Great hike? I asked. She nodded. So beautiful. The orchids were insane. I'll show you pics tomorrow. My phone's charging. Another lie. Because her charger was in the bathroom, and the phone wasn't anywhere near it. She showered, got into bed, turned away from me like her back had more to say than her mouth did. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, counting the seconds between her breathing patterns. She fell asleep fast. Suspiciously fast. But I didn't check her phone. Didn't want to be that guy yet. Still thought maybe I was just being paranoid. Maybe she did love orchids. Maybe she just needed space. Until day 3, when I checked our credit card app and saw the charge. It wasn't big. Just one of those luxury blurbs that hides the knife and softness. Lido Bliss Spa, couples renewal package, $480. And my brain did a full spin cycle. Because I hadn't stepped foot in that spa. I'd spent the afternoon at the rum distillery tour with a group of Canadians who knew more about sugarcane than my tax guy knows about loopholes. So unless Dana had a twin or a spiritual double booked in my name, someone else was getting very relaxed with her. And now, suddenly, those orchids didn't smell so sweet. I didn't confront her right away. Didn't scream. Didn't flip a table or storm the spa like a jilted reality TV husband. I watched. I waited. Because something told me this wasn't her first time navigating secret hallways. And if there's one thing cruise ships do better than cocktails, it's hide things in plain sight. Including affairs. Especially ones with perks. Like a private spa. Or a room key that opens more than one cabin. The thing about cruise ships is they're built for illusions. Everything's polished, padded, and strategically lit. Even the hallways feel like they're hiding something. Curved just enough so you can't see who's around the corner. Add in a rotating cast of strangers, fruity cocktails, and no cell service? You've got the perfect ecosystem for quiet betrayal. And Dana was thriving in it. She didn't know I'd seen the spa charge. Didn't know I'd spent an hour that morning on the top deck reading, while actually watching her laugh a little too hard at someone's joke near the smoothie bar. He was tall, tan, and wore a name tag that said Alec, cruise director. Of course it was the cruise director. The guy with the mic and the dimples and the rehearsed charm that every bored housewife secretly wished was giving her private attention during shuffleboard. I watched as Dana leaned in closer. Not suspiciously, just enough to cross that invisible line between friendly and familiar. He touched her arm when he laughed. She let him, and I knew. I could have confronted her that second. Walked over, made a scene, made it real. But something in me wanted more. More proof. More impact. Something that wouldn't just end the cruise. It would end the entire story we'd built together. Something cinematic. Clean. Undeniable. So I got to work. Step 1. Surveillance. Not as dramatic as it sounds. Just a few clever tricks. I started by taking a wrong turn toward the spa. Sure enough, there was a private entrance on the lower Lido deck. Discreet. Hidden behind some fake bamboo planters. I watched from the stairwell as Alec buzzed someone in. A woman in a white cover-up with gold trim. Dana. I couldn't see her face, but I knew the walk. I'd followed it through every mall, every airport, every backyard barbecue we'd ever been to. She didn't even hesitate. That's what burned the most. She moved like this wasn't her first time. That night, at dinner, she was all smiles. Tomorrow, I booked us a cooking class in Cozumel, she said, waving a glossy excursion brochure like it was a peace treaty. Sounds great, I said, smiling back. You know I love tamales. She blinked, just a beat too long, then laughed. You do? I forgot. No, you didn't. You just weren't thinking about me at all. I needed help. Not from security. Not from the concierge. I needed someone who knew the ship better than Alec did. Enter Marcus, the DJ. I met him by accident, or fate, at the Martini Lounge during their 80s throwback night. He was off duty, sipping something neon blue, clearly just trying to blend in. Great set tonight, I said casually. He nodded. Thanks, man. You here with the group from Texas? I shook my head. Nope, just cruising with my wife. He looked over my shoulder at Dana, who was across the room laughing at a waiter's joke. Cool, he said. Something in his tone told me he'd seen this movie before. I waited until he finished his drink, then leaned in. Hey, weird question. By midnight, Marcus and I were reviewing security blind spots on a map he'd sketched on a cocktail napkin. There's a camera near the spa, he said. But it's motion only, no sound. You want audio? You're gonna need something closer. Like what? He smirked. Like karaoke. I raised an eyebrow. He explained. Apparently, the karaoke lounge was wired to record sets for quality review. No one actually listened to them, except Marcus, who handled the music files. We can patch in, he said. Mic on, feed to my laptop. You just gotta get them in the room. I blinked. That's genius. He sipped his drink. It's also illegal. I grinned. So's adultery in some states. He laughed. Fair enough. The next afternoon, Dana claimed she was going to the art auction. I said I was heading to the gym. Instead, I met Marcus outside the karaoke lounge. We set up fast. Hidden camera by the piano. Mic live. Audio feed direct to Marcus's MacBook. Now all I had to do was get them there. But I didn't rush it. I waited until I overheard Dana saying she loved karaoke nights. Waited until Alec mentioned hosting a private sing-along for VIP guests. Waited until the night before our final port stop. That's when it happened. They slipped into the lounge just after 10 p.m. Dana wore a coral sundress I hadn't seen before. Alec was in a button-down with the sleeves rolled just so. They didn't sing. They talked. Laughed. She touched his arm. He brushed hair from her shoulder. No kissing. No confessions. But enough electricity to light the whole damn ship. Marcus hit record. Got it, he said, eyes on the screen. I didn't speak. Didn't move. Just watched the woman I married become someone else. All while holding a glass of water I no longer felt thirsty enough to finish. Tomorrow would be our last night on board. Formal night. The big party on the pool deck. Live music, lights, announcements. And right around 9 p.m., a special karaoke proposal. She wouldn't see it coming. And neither would he. Because the man she was whispering to wasn't just a cruise director. He was married, too. And his wife owned the ship. By breakfast the next morning, I'd already made peace with what I was about to do. Well, not peace. Not forgiveness. Just clarity. There's a strange kind of stillness that comes when your marriage is officially dead, but the corpse is still brushing its teeth next to you. Dana hummed as she applied mascara in the mirror, our cabin filled with soft island morning light and fake enthusiasm. I booked us a couple's massage for later, she said, not turning around. Oh, I replied. Thought you hated ship spas. I changed my mind. It's our last full day, she said, swiping lip gloss like it was a shield. Let's end on a high note. That part was true, at least. We were definitely ending something tonight. Marcus texted me at 10:07 a.m. Audio's clean. Good angles. Can drop it over your karaoke track, no prob. I stared at the message for a second. Not because I was unsure, I just needed the moment to settle. It was real now. No more wondering. No more waiting. No more hoping I'd misread the clues, or that maybe Alec just had touchy-feely cruise director energy. He wasn't flirting. He was investing, and my wife was compounding it. So I did what any rational man would do with a broken heart and access to a public address system. I asked Marcus to overlay their mic feed onto a karaoke track. Not just any track, though. Dana's favorite, At Last by Etta James. It was poetic. She always said she'd want that as her vow renewal song if we ever made it to our 20th. We weren't going to make it to 14. Formal night arrived like a masquerade. All glitter. No grace. Dana emerged from the bathroom in a black satin dress that clung to her in ways I hadn't felt in years. "You clean up nice," she said, slipping a diamond stud into her ear. "You always do," I replied. She smiled like she meant it. But that wasn't love behind her eyes. That was performance. She didn't know the show she was walking into was a different one altogether. We made our way to the Lido deck, where tables had been cleared and a pop-up stage set up. String lights framed the sky. Champagne flowed. Phones snapped. Everything looked perfect. Perfect is a lie. The DJ booth was disguised as part of the band setup. Marcus nodded once when we arrived. The playlist rolled on. Slow jazz. Classic swing. One tacky Bruno Mars cover that made everyone collectively cringe. And then Marcus stepped up to the mic. "Ladies and gentlemen, we've got something special planned," he said, grin wide. "A surprise karaoke moment, and a love story for the ages." The crowd clapped. Dana clutched my arm, confused. "You didn't." I just smiled. Let her think it was romantic. Let her breathe in the moment. Let her walk right into it. Marcus continued. "We had a last-minute sign-up from a husband who wanted to dedicate his wife's favorite song. Dana, this one's for you." Cue music. Etta James's voice poured from the speakers. Soft, soulful, too perfect. And then came the overlay. Not lyrics. Not vocals. But voices. Their voices. Dana and Alec. Recorded. Laughing. Flirting. Him. "You're so easy to talk to." Her. "Only when I'm not married." Him. "Good thing you're not acting like it." Her. "Good thing you're not either." Laughter. Silence. Then the sound of lips brushing a mic. A kiss. The crowd froze. Dana turned white. Marcus didn't stop the track. Etta sang on, a haunting soundtrack to a public undressing. "At last my love has come along." Gasps rippled through the crowd. One woman dropped her wine glass. Another covered her mouth. A man near the buffet said, "Jesus Christ," like a prayer and a curse all at once. Dana wasn't looking at me. She was looking for Alec. But Alec wasn't beside her. He was 20 feet away, near the lifeboat station, and someone else was next to him. A woman, mid-40s, elegant, power in heels. She didn't slap him, didn't shout. She just said, loudly enough for everyone to hear, "You promised me this ship was yours." Guess you meant the staterooms, not the comms system. Dana's breath caught. She looked at the woman, then at Alec, then at me. "What did you do?" she hissed. I leaned in, whispered, "Just return the favor." Then I turned and walked away, the chorus still playing behind me like a funeral march in slow motion. I didn't go back to the cabin that night. Slept on a lounge chair under the stars, wrapped in a pool towel, listening to drunk passengers whisper about the karaoke betrayal. They'd be talking about it for weeks. Months. Years, probably. Did you hear about the guy who exposed his cheating wife on formal night? Right before dessert. Played their affair like a Spotify exclusive. The legend was already writing itself. I didn't need to add a single word. But we weren't done yet. Because Alec's wife? The elegant one. She wasn't just a guest. She was the reason Alec had a job. And she wasn't done speaking. There's a strange stillness after public chaos. Like when the music stops at a party, but the lights are still on and no one knows whether to laugh or leave. That was the Lido deck at 9:09 p.m., 1 minute after Dana's favorite Etta James track morphed into a wiretap. The shock lingered in the air like smoke after a fire. Some people quietly backed away like they were guilty just for witnessing it. Others stayed frozen, eyes darting between Dana and Alec like they were watching a car crash in slow motion. Dana? She wasn't crying. She wasn't even breathing. She just stood there, clutching the edge of the linen-draped buffet table like gravity had betrayed her. Alec looked like someone had shoved a glass of ice water down his back. Red-faced, sweating, jaw twitching. But it was the woman next to him who owned the moment. Elaine. That was her name. Elegant, composed, and radiating the type of power that doesn't need a mic to be heard. She turned to Alec and said, clear and calm, I want your office cleared by sunrise. Dana blinked. Wait, what? She whispered, stepping forward. Elaine turned, smiled, politely, like she was about to offer tea. You must be Dana, she said. I've seen your name, but I never realized it was attached to such initiative. Dana opened her mouth, then closed it. I'm Elaine Fairchild. The woman continued, now speaking loudly enough for the surrounding guests to catch every word. Owner of this ship, and 3 others. Alec worked for me, until this evening. Alec finally found his voice. Elaine, I didn't know they were recording. She raised a hand. He stopped mid-sentence like a dog trained with electric fences. I don't care about the tape, she said. I care about the choices. You humiliated yourself. You humiliated me. You humiliated my ship. She let that last word hang. Dana looked like she wanted to melt into the deck plating. But Elaine wasn't done. Security will escort you to your cabin. Don't bother packing. You can collect your luggage via freight chute when we dock in San Juan. Elaine, please. Don't beg, she snapped. It's beneath both of us. Alec went quiet, then slowly backed away. The crowd began to disperse in that uncomfortable shuffle people do when they've seen too much but still want dessert. I leaned against the railing, sipping a glass of water Marcus had somehow handed me without a word. He stood beside me now, watching the chaos as if it were a stage play. You good? He asked finally. I nodded. You? He smirked. Highlight of the cruise, man. And I've seen 2 drunk bachelorette parties throw hands over a karaoke mic. I chuckled, then asked, what's she gonna do now? He nodded toward Dana, who was being led away by a junior crew member, not by force, just as a suggestion. She'll spin it, or deny it, or both. Think she'll talk to me. Marcus gave me a look. Do you care? No, not anymore. I stayed up on deck long after everyone had gone to their cabins. The music returned, softer now, more instrumental. A kind of ambient apology. The bar kept serving, but people ordered quieter drinks. Neat pours. No umbrellas. Elaine eventually reappeared, alone, wearing a navy wrap and holding a tablet. She walked up beside me like we were old friends. You embarrassed her well, she said. Classy delivery. I wasn't trying to humiliate her, I said. I just didn't want to feel crazy. She nodded. That's worse than betrayal sometimes. The gaslighting. We stood in silence. She sipped her drink. Then, why karaoke? I grinned. She once told me Etta James was her song. Said it was timeless. Said she felt safe in it. Elaine raised her glass. Well, she'll remember it now. The next morning was a port day, San Juan. Dana didn't show for breakfast. No surprise. Alec didn't either. Rumor was, he'd already been transferred to a service boat with his luggage and a note that said, thank you for your service. Cruise gossip spreads fast, especially after betrayal becomes live entertainment. Guests nodded at me more now. Some offered sympathetic smiles. A few offered subtle high fives, like I'd done something noble. But I didn't feel noble. I felt finished. That quiet kind of finished where there's nothing left to fix, no conversation worth having. Just release. Dana finally texted around noon. We need to talk. I didn't answer. She followed with, you didn't have to do it like that. I read it, then locked my phone. Of course I didn't have to. But when someone lies to your face and kisses someone else under your roof, or your shared vacation, you don't owe them discretion. You owe them the truth, spoken fluently in their own language. And Dana's language was performance. So I gave her the show she'd been writing in secret. Scene. By. Scene. When we returned to the ship that evening, I caught sight of her briefly. Sunglasses on, hair tied up, standing alone by the atrium, pretending to read a menu she'd memorized days ago. I walked past without stopping. No words exchanged. No final plea, because the story was already over. And what she didn't know was that Marcus and Elaine had a few more surprises planned for the final night's farewell celebration. The cruise may have been ending, but the finale? That was still to come. There's something oddly theatrical about the last night of a cruise. Everyone's a little sunburned, a little buzzed, and a little desperate to pretend none of the awkwardness from the week ever happened. Even the staff get a touch sentimental, smiling more, lingering at tables, slipping in just one more rum punch on the house. It's the calmest form of denial I've ever witnessed. But I wasn't in the mood for nostalgia. I was in the mood for closure. And thanks to Elaine, I was going to get exactly that. The invite came around 2 p.m., hand-delivered by a steward with a gold name badge, and the expression of someone trying very hard not to smirk. It was cream-colored, heavy cardstock, embossed lettering. Captain's Farewell Celebration, Upper Deck Lounge, 8 p.m. formal attire required. Below that, in smaller print, with a special tribute honoring resilience, partnership, and loyalty. I didn't need a translator. Elaine had crafted her own version of the finale, and I was on the guest list. Dana didn't text me again that day. No calls. No, we need to talk. No surprise, either. After what happened on the Lido deck, she had no more cards to play. Her poker face was shredded. Her hand? Public record. The only thing she could do now was slink back into the shadows and pretend this wasn't her story anymore. But it was. I made sure of that. I arrived at the lounge just before 8, in the same tux I'd worn the night before. Tie loose, collar open. I wasn't there to impress anyone. I was there to watch the curtain fall. The room was done up in navy and silver, with candlelit tables and waiters moving like chess pieces. A jazz quartet played soft standards in the corner. Elaine stood near the stage, holding a champagne flute and talking to a group of guests who all looked just tipsy enough to be agreeable. She spotted me, raised her glass. I gave a slight nod. That was enough. At 8:17 p.m., she took the stage, tapped the mic. The room quieted instantly. She looked out over the crowd, eyes sharp, voice smooth. Ladies and gentlemen, as our voyage draws to a close, I want to thank each of you for your presence, your energy, and your trust. Applause. She waited, then continued. But before we toast to safe returns and fond memories, I'd like to share something personal, something that, to me, defines the very spirit of what this cruise was meant to be. She gestured to the back of the room. Marcus dimmed the lights. A screen descended behind her. The guests murmured. Elaine smiled. This week, I was reminded that loyalty isn't measured in words, but in actions, in silence, in dignity, and sometimes in public karaoke sessions. A few chuckles. She let them fade. Tonight, I'd like to honor someone who turned betrayal into composure. Someone who reminded me, and all of us, that love may disappoint, but character never does. Then, with a cue so subtle it might have been a blink, the screen lit up, and the show began. It wasn't the same video from karaoke night. No, this was cleaner, sharper, tighter. Marcus had edited it into a slow montage, Dana and Alec whispering by the spa, their mic conversation layered with soft instrumental music. Dana laughing, Alec leaning in. Then, the kiss. Just a brush. Enough to register. Enough to wound. The screen faded to black. Then, a single line in white serif text. She thought she'd never be caught. She forgot whose ship she was on. Gasps. Silence. Elaine returned to the mic. Let that be a lesson to us all, she said, smiling without warmth. Always tip your staff. And never cheat on a ship owned by your affair partner's wife. The room erupted. Not in anger. In applause. Half the crowd stood. Some clapped with their hands overhead. Even the band joined in. I stayed seated. Still. Quiet. Because my job was done. Dana wasn't in the room. I found out later that she'd locked herself in the cabin once the RSVP list for the event leaked. Apparently, someone had scribbled Karaoke Queen Returns on the door of her stateroom in red lipstick. Not my doing. But I didn't mind. Alec had already been flown out of San Juan. Elaine's lawyers were reportedly working overtime, drawing up ironclad termination clauses and non-disclosure agreements so thick they'd snap a copier tray. She'd cleaned house. I had simply provided the vacuum. When I returned to my cabin later that night, the bed was made. The windows cracked. A note sat on my pillow. Not from Dana. From Elaine. Sometimes you don't need to sink the ship. Just show everyone who's steering it. Underneath was a gift card. $500 to the cruise line spa. Valid for 1, not 2. I smiled. She was savage. And I liked that. At sunrise, we docked in Miami. Disembarkation was smooth, polite, professional. Everyone avoided eye contact or offered knowing glances. Dana walked 20 feet behind me, dragging her carry-on like a forgotten souvenir. We didn't speak. Didn't need to. Because some endings are loud. But the ones that echo are the ones whispered in rooms where people pretend not to listen. The cruise was over. But the legend? Just setting sail. I always thought the end of a vacation was supposed to feel like gravity. You come back to Earth, bags heavier than when you left, skin a shade darker, inbox overflowing, and a mild ache behind your eyes from too many rum punches or too much fake smiling. But not this time. As I stood on the sidewalk outside the Miami terminal, the Florida sun punching through my sunglasses, I felt nothing. Not empty, not angry, not victorious, just still, like I'd finally put something down that had been strangling me for years. Only I never realized how heavy it was until I let go. Dana was a few paces away, standing stiff beside an Uber she'd ordered before we even cleared customs. She didn't look at me. She just opened the door, slid in without a word, and left a silence in her wake so wide it could have swallowed the whole damn ship. That was the last time I saw her. I didn't go straight home. I booked myself 3 nights at a quiet little beachside in 40 minutes north of the city. Nothing fancy, no itinerary, just clean sheets, ocean air, and a coffee pot that didn't ask questions. The first night, I slept 12 hours straight. Not the anxious kind of sleep you get when you're avoiding your problems, but the kind that hits when your body finally gets the memo that the war is over. No dreams, no nightmares, just rest. The second day, I turned my phone back on. 17 missed calls. For voicemails. 2 long texts from Dana that alternated between blame and desperation like a bad mixtape from someone who never learned how to take responsibility. I didn't respond. Not out of cruelty. Out of principle. She'd said everything I needed to hear over a ship-wide microphone and a Bluetooth lapel mic. Anything else was just post-credit scenes. By the third morning, I felt clear-headed enough to think about next steps. Not revenge. Not damage control. Just logistics. Our house. We'd sell it. The accounts? I'd already moved half into a protected trust before the cruise. The dog? We didn't have one. She always said pets were too much maintenance. Which was rich, considering the human drama she'd been juggling. I emailed my lawyer. Asked him to start the paperwork. No rage. No manifesto. Just a clean break with a few bullet points. Bulletproof. He called me an hour later. Are you sure you don't want to talk through this? No need, I said. The proof's already in her playlist. He laughed, didn't ask for clarification, and said he'd handle it. The real surprise came 2 weeks later. I got an email from the cruise line. A survey, sure, but also a personal note from Elaine. Subject line, still steering. The body read, hope you've had a calm re-entry. The footage made waves. Corporates already implemented stricter staff protocols and banned personal guest interactions on all owned vessels. Thought you'd enjoy the update. P.S. If you're ever interested in a behind-the-scenes tour of our private fleet, let me know. We're always looking for clear-eyed people who understand the value of transparency. No offer. No contract. Just respect. It was strange. To be acknowledged without needing to raise your voice. To be seen by someone who doesn't flinch at discomfort. It didn't make me feel powerful. It made me feel sane. Dana sent a final message. 3 weeks post-disembarkment. A long email titled Closure. She wrote about how she was confused, how the cruise messed with her head, how Alec had told her one thing and done another, how she hadn't meant to hurt us like that. I skimmed it. Somewhere in there, she asked for a conversation, a chance to reflect. I closed the laptop. That was her version of closure. Mine was watching her reflection blur across the screen while a room full of strangers heard her whisper, "Only when I'm not married." Some things don't need repeating. Some confessions are already permanent. And some finales are meant to be delivered in surround sound. Months passed. The story of the cruise control became internet folklore. Some Reddit thread picked it up. Then a travel blog. Then a podcast that breaks down viral betrayals. I never confirmed or denied any of it. But I did listen once, earbuds in, walking along the boardwalk, smiling as some British voice said. And that's when he played the audio over her favorite karaoke song. Absolute legend. Legend. Funny word for someone who just wanted the truth. I don't date much now. Not because I'm broken. Because I'm busy being whole again. I cook. I surf badly. I tip generously. And every so often, I hear Etta James in a cafe or a movie trailer, and I feel nothing but calm. Because the song didn't ruin me. She did. And now that I know what betrayal sounds like, up close, unfiltered, broadcast at 110 decibels, I'll never mistake it for music again. At last, my heart was not wrapped up in clovers. It was just mine again. And that was the real departure. Subscribe to the channel